Okay, here we are. Today is session number 114, in Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. We are still in chapter 14, entitled Teaching for Truth. And once again, the teaching is not proselytizing or verbalizing necessarily, but joining with the Holy Spirit and bringing that to everyone. Your example, okay, the way you live your life. And section 10, Roman numeral 10, is called The Equality of Miracles. All right, Jesus is going to hearken back to the first statement in the first chapter of this book, where there are no order of difficulty in miracles. Right? All expressions of love are maximal. Right? There's no hierarchy, no order of difficulty. So let's proceed. Paragraph 1 in The Equality of Miracles, which, by the way, is on page 293. Okay. All righty. When no perception stands between God and his creations, or between his children and their own, the knowledge of creation must continue forever. The reflections you accept into the mirror of your mind bring but eternity nearer or farther. But eternity itself is beyond all time. Reach out of time and touch it with the help of its reflection in you, and you will turn from time to holiness, as surely as the reflection of holiness calls everyone to lay all guilt aside. Reflect the peace of heaven here, and bring this world to heaven. For the reflection of truth draws everyone to truth, and as they enter into it, they leave all reflections behind. All right. So he says, when no perceptions stand between God and his creations, that means when the world of perception is gone, right? And no perceptions stand between God's children and their own projections, okay? The knowledge of creation must continue forever. That's the realm of knowledge, all right? When there's no more world of perception, right? And senses reporting different things, gathering data, as they say. Right? When there are no more perceptions between you and God, the knowledge of creation must go on forever. The knowledge that you extend everything, everywhere, must continue forever. But then he says, the reflections you accept into the mirror of your mind in time, but bring eternity nearer or farther. So in time, which is where we believe we are, okay, we believe there's a past, present, and future instead of just now. Right? So in time, the reflections that I accept into my mind, whether it's the ego or the reflection of oneness, the reflection of separation or the reflection of oneness, right? Whatever I accept into my mind, that brings eternity nearer or farther, all right? So it brings the awareness closer to me or further away, right? But eternity itself is beyond all time. Eternity itself is beyond this ego thought system, which is the foundation of the concept of time. Right? And he suggests to us, reach out of time and touch it. Reach out of time and touch eternity. Okay? With the help of its reflection in you. Right? We go to the Holy Spirit, symbolized by Jesus. We go to our friend Jesus, and we just abide with them, so to speak. And we are reaching out beyond time and touching eternity. All right. And you will turn from time to holiness, as surely as the reflection of holiness calls everyone to lay all guilt aside. Right? The reflection of holiness, that awareness of who we are that grows and grows. It just exhorts us to lay all guilt aside, right? And reflect the peace of heaven here and bring this world to heaven. Right? For the reflection of truth draws everyone to truth, and as they enter into it, they leave all reflections behind. So as the awareness of truth grows in us, we attract the parts of the mind that are looking for truth, put it that way. And they grow, okay? They grow. They take the light from our candle, so to speak. For the reflections of truth draws everyone to truth. And as they enter into it, they leave all reflections behind. Right? And that's the process. That eventually, all fragments of the mind return to the truth and leave the perceptions and all reflections behind. Because even the reflection of heaven in this world is just a hint of what's to come. And we won't need those reflections once we're aware of the truth. Paragraph 2. In heaven, reality is shared and not reflected. By sharing its reflection here, its truth becomes the only perception the Son of God accepts. And thus, remembrance of his Father dawns on him, and he can no longer be satisfied with anything but his own reality. You on earth have no conception of limitlessness, for the world you seem to live in is a world of limits. In this world, it is not true that anything without order of difficulty can occur. The miracle, therefore, has a unique function and is motivated by a unique teacher who brings the laws of another world to this one. The miracle is the one thing you can do that transcends order, being based not on differences, but on equality. So he says, on earth you have no idea about limitlessness. Okay. For the world you seem to live in is full of limits. Everything is limited in this world. Right? Everything is finite. All right? No matter what you can think of in this world, it is limited. It does not last forever. It is not timeless. Okay? And he says, then in this world, it's not true that anything without order of difficulty can occur. So he says, everything in this world has an order of difficulty, so to speak. Right? Some things are greater, some things are lesser. Right? So that phrase always reminds me of the diving competitions in the Olympics. Right? They always assign an order of difficulty to the dive. Right? But we have orders of difficulty in everything in this world. So he says the miracle, therefore, has a unique function. Right? It's motivated by a unique teacher who brings the laws of another world to this one. Right? So what it is, the miracle doesn't have an order of difficulty. When we connect with love, right? Love comes through us and envelops the situation, no matter what the situation is. Right? No matter what the situation is, love does not see an order of difficulty. Right? It engulfs the situation with maximal love. Right? It answers every call with the same amount of love. It never differs. This is what he's talking about. Right? He says, the miracle is the one thing you can do that transcends order, being based not on differences, but on equality. Right? When we see everything through the reflection of guiltlessness, that guiltlessness covers everything in the same way. Right? There's no order of difficulty. Let's just go on to 3. Paragraph 3. Miracles are not in competition, and the number of them that you can do is limitless. Right? They can be simultaneous and legion. This is not difficult to understand once you conceive of them as possible at all. What is more difficult to grasp is the lack of order of difficulty that stamps the miracle as something that must come from somewhere else, not from here. From the world's point of view, this is impossible. Right? So he says you can do legions of miracles. And he says it's not impossible to understand, right? Once you conceive of the possibility at all. Once you conceive of the possibility of being able to see differently, right? With help, we see correctly, right? And our perception is changed from projection of guilt to extension of love. He says once you even believe in that concept, you realize that the number of perceptions that can be changed is virtually limitless. The things that you can do are limitless. Right? And what I mean by that is in the mind. We change other minds. We help other minds to change, not by conversion. Okay, don't get me wrong. All right, but just by connecting with love, connecting with that memory of who you are. All right, we use the words Holy Spirit. We use the word Jesus. Right? These are symbols, reflections of love. We connect with that, and we become channels of that love. And it's limitless because love is limitless, and you can connect with it all day long. And you don't have to know what the miracle looks like. You don't have to know, oh, I have to go over here and, think about love. All right? You just have to connect. Right? You don't have to have an agenda or an order of difficulty. All right? He says, from the world's point of view, this is just silly. It's impossible. He says, but miracles are not in competition. Right? And the number of them you can do is limitless. Right? Miracles don't see, oh, this is more important, I have to do this over here. You just connect with the reality, the memory of who you are. And let that reality take over from there. Paragraph 4, perhaps you have been aware of a lack of competition among your thoughts, which even though they may conflict, they can occur together and in great numbers. You may indeed be so used to this that it causes you little surprise. Yet you are so used to classifying some of your thoughts as more important, larger, or better, wiser, or more productive and valuable than others. This is true of the thoughts that cross the mind of those who think they live apart. For some are reflections of heaven, while others are motivated by the ego, which but seems to think. Okay. So who he's talking about us when he says, these are the things that cross the mind of those who think they live apart. So, that's us. We think we live apart from the oneness. We think we live apart from God. We think we live apart from one another. Okay? And he says, perhaps you've become aware that your thoughts may conflict and they can occur together and in great numbers. Right? Some days you're so aware of that. You got so many things, I got a lot on my mind, as the saying goes. Some, in recent memory, they have the phrase, I'm taking a mental health day. Right? Because I got a lot of things on my mind, I got a lot of thoughts going on. Right? But what we do in this ego thought system was we just triage them. We put them in an order of importance. Okay? Your phone call to your friend might not be on the top of the list because I got to get something for dinner, I got to get something, I got to do the laundry, I got to pay the bills, all those things. And then you have to think, well, that's rather mundane things to do, because that's what we do. We order things. We put things in, the priority, right? There's something more important than doing laundry, so I have to do that. And that's what we do as human beings in the human condition. He's not condemning us for it. He's just saying, just look, this is what you do. All right? He says, you're probably aware of that. And he says you may indeed be so used to it that this causes you little surprise. Yet you are also used to classifying some of your thoughts. Right? As we say, he says you classify some of your thoughts as more important. Stop daydreaming. That's not important. Okay? Mr. Pratt, what are you looking at? Why are you looking out that window? Right. Bring your head back here and focus on algebra. Okay, all right, Father. All right, so we think one thought is more important than the other, or larger, or better, or wiser, or more productive and valuable. What are you wasting time thinking about that? You have to be productive. I remember a friend of mine from decades ago just popped up in my memory. He said to me, you know what your problem is? Because he's always good at pointing out my problems. You listen to too much music. I said, okay. You know, thanks for sharing it all. You know, he was putting things in order according to his perceptions. And music just wasn't very important, or music was a distraction. Okay? And this is all within the human condition. That's the way it goes. He says, and in the middle of all these thoughts that crowd together and come and go, and you know, I know it was Deepak Chopra that at one point said you have 10,000 thoughts a day. The possibility of 10,000 thoughts a day. Now those thoughts are crushing in. They are crowding. It's rush hour all day long. All right? So we prioritize. And he says some of those thoughts, within those 10,000, some of those thoughts are reflections of heaven. You have some lofty thoughts, some beautiful, loving thoughts. All right? But then they come and go like everything else. All right? For some are reflections of heaven, while others are motivated by the ego, which but seems to think. Right? He always throws that in there. The ego just seems to think. Right? The result, in paragraph 5, the result is a weaving, changing pattern that never rests and is never still. It shifts unceasingly across the mirror of your mind, and the reflections of heaven last but a moment and grow dim as darkness blots them out. Where there was light, darkness removes it in an instant, and alternating patterns of light and darkness sweep constantly across the mind. The little sanity that still remains is held together by a sense of order that you establish. Yet the very fact that you can do this and bring any order into chaos shows you that you are not an ego, and that more than an ego must be in you. For the ego is chaos, and if it were all of you, no order would be possible. Yet though the order you impose upon your mind limits the ego, it also limits you. To order is to judge, and to arrange by judgment. Therefore, it is not your function, but the Holy Spirit's. All right? He says, you try to get a grip on yourself there, get a grip on your life. Get a grip. Right? You try to put things in order. He says, just the very fact that you do that should suggest to you that you are not just this chaotic experience. There's something in you attempting to bring order to this chaos. Okay? And he says, yet though the order you impose upon your mind limits the ego, so you put, best you can, you limit the craziness, the chaos. He says, but you're also, at the same time, you're also limiting your true self. Right? You're just trying to balance. Right? Just trying to make it through the day. As John Lennon would say, whatever gets you through the night. See, I guess I did listen to too much music. Not really. All right? Therefore, and he says, so in order to judge what thoughts you have to put where, and in order to judge, all right? Well, to put in order is to judge things, all right? And to arrange things by judgment. He says, so let the Holy Spirit do that for you. That's the Holy Spirit's function, is judgment. Just think about that. Bring everything, all these thoughts, the ones you're aware of, right? You bring them to the Holy Spirit. And what you're asking for is peace of mind. I want to see correctly. I'd like to have some peace. Thank you. Right? Can you help me with that? And the Holy Spirit is there to judge things. And the Holy Spirit's judgment is got that sense of equality in it. Right? Everything is either an extension of love or a request for love. Right? Everything. It's either a call for the love that you or someone else thinks is missing, or else you are extending love. That thought is a thought of love. All right. It says, let the Holy Spirit arrange things. All right. Let him be your secretary. All right. Your event planner. So, to order is to judge, and to arrange by judgment. Therefore, it's not your function, but the Holy Spirit's. Okay? Let him do it. Let the Holy Spirit do it. Paragraph 6. It will seem difficult for you to learn that you have no basis at all for ordering your thoughts. This lesson the Holy Spirit teaches by giving you the shining examples of miracles to show you that your way of ordering is wrong. Right? But that a better way is offered you. The miracle offers exactly the same response to every call for help. It does not judge the call. It merely recognizes what it is and answers accordingly. It does not consider which call is louder or greater or more important. You may wonder how you, who are still bound to judgment, can be asked to do that which requires no judgment of your own. The answer is very simple. The power of God, and not of you, engenders miracles. The miracle itself is but the witness that you have the power of God in you. That is the reason why the miracle gives equal blessing to all who share in it. And that is also why everyone shares in it. The power of God is limitless, and being always maximal, it offers everything to every call from anyone. There is no order of difficulty here. A call for help is given help. That's very cool. That's very beautiful. A call for help is given help. Right? We connect with the Holy Spirit. Right? We ask, help me to see this correctly. Right? This goes on very quickly after a while, of course. And we've connected with the memory of who we are. We've connected with love. We've become a channel of that. Right? And it goes out and it engulfs the situations. Right? We may pass by a little baby sitting in a carriage crying. Okay? Or we may just pass by a pedestrian and he could see the look of sadness, of desperation, of fear. You could see all those looks on their faces. Right? But the answer will be the same. A maximal dose of love. Because we are connected to the Holy Spirit. We don't need to figure out, oh, this child only needs a little teaspoon of love. This one needs an IV drip. All right? We don't need to do that. Okay? We need to connect with the Holy Spirit. Right? We connect with Jesus, your friend. and just ask him to walk with you. Help me to see the things through your eyes. And we will be extending love. All right? And you won't even know it until you do, as Biggie Smalls would say. All right? Now you know. All right? But you just connect. That's all we need to do, is connect with the Holy Spirit and ask, help me to see correctly. Help me to see this whole world correctly. Okay? And while you're here, you can be that channel of love. And that's just not, some kind of Sunday morning message. All right? That is an actuality. Right? Every day, all day. In the crowd, all by yourself, waking, sleeping, you can be the channel of love. Right? There is no order of difficulty. And that's the power of God in you, he's telling us. Right? Because every dose of love is maximal. There's no half doses, and then you come back in 21 days and get the second dose. A reflection of the times in which we live. But all doses are maximal. And he says, because we connect with the Holy Spirit, a call for help is given help. Right? That love will take the shape, will take the form of the situation. We don't need to know what it looks like. We just need to be willing to open up and let it come through us. All right? There is no order of difficulty here. The power of God is limitless. And being always maximal, it offers everything to every call from anyone. Alrighty then. Paragraph 7. The only judgment involved is the Holy Spirit's one division into two categories. One of love, and the other the call for love. You cannot safely make this division, for you are much too confused, either to recognize love or to believe that everything else is nothing but a call for love. You are too bound to form and not to content. What you consider content is not content at all. It is merely form and nothing else. For you do not respond to what a brother really offers you, but only to the particular perception of his offering by which the ego judges it. Okay? So, that's Jesus telling Helen Schuckman, and through Helen, all of us, telling us, stay in your lane. Okay? That's the common, the common phrase goes, the current phrase, I should say. Stay in your lane. He says, you're too bound to form. Right? You're too, and really, think about it. We are. We're just really bound to thinking that everything is, solid, and everything is what is, everything is what it's been called. This is a mountain, this is a molehill, and everything in between. Okay? He says you're too bound to form. All right? So you can't make the division yourself between what's loving and what's a call for love. Okay? And be realistic. You have to connect with the Holy Spirit and just ask to see correctly. Right? Otherwise, you'll be tempted to be misguided. you know, there's an abusive person, right, that always shows up somewhere, or in the office maybe, or on the bus, or in your family, you know. And, you know, all of a sudden, you know, we just say, well, he's just calling out for love. Which is true. But is that really your experience? Is that really your awareness? All right. So check yourself, all right, before you wreck yourself, as they say. Always ask the Holy Spirit just to help you see correctly, and be willing to allow love to graciously fall on the situation. Right? The quality of mercy is not strained. Right? It's a very beautiful speech. Right? And the quality of love is not strained. It just falls gently on everything, everywhere. Okay? And he says, just continue to contact the Holy Spirit, right? You're too bound to form and not to content. The love is the content. Okay? The reality, the reflection of reality is the content. What you consider content is not content at all. It is merely form and nothing else. For you do not respond to what a brother really offers you, but only to the particular perception of his offering by which the ego judges it. Right? We're constantly using the ego to figure stuff out. Right? He says, so don't rely on that. Come to me. Ask me. Help me to see with your eyes. Right? You could say it any way you want, as long as you get the request. And as Dr. Wapnick used to say, can you say help? Right? Someone once asked him, is there a certain prayer we could say? Can you say help? It's very quick. And in that plea, in that request for help, it's recognize that I want to see correctly. Help me to see a reflection of reality. Oh, righty then. And I chuckle because, you know, over 30 years, you read different things and you get to know. And I remember, you know, you can listen to all kinds of CDs and recordings by Dr. Wapnick, and some of them he'll tell you about Helen Schuckman's personality. All right? She didn't take anything from anybody. Right? She would let you know how she felt about you. Right? She was, the word that comes up for me now is cantankerous at times. Although Ken says she had that goddess in her. Right? She had that other part of her that truly knew that she was connected, right? That she was connected to the oneness. Right? It's just that when she was acting according to her ego self, she could be sharp. She have sharp elbows, as they used to say. Right? And I just chuckle reading this because I'm imagining, now Jesus, he comes through Helen's mind. He identified himself as Jesus, right? Because that's what Helen was used to that. Helen was familiar with that figure, very familiar, right? If you want to get into past lives someday, we could. But here he is talking to her, and he's telling her, you don't know what you're too bound to form, right? You don't know how to judge anything. What you think is content is not content. All right? You can imagine him having this, or revealing these things to Helen, who would take offense at times. All right, but she knew what he was telling her was the truth. All right, a call for help is given help. All right. So let's look at paragraph 8. The ego is incapable of understanding content. All right, it's incapable of understanding love, and is totally unconcerned with it. To the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. Otherwise, it will attack the form. If you believe you understand something of the dynamics of the ego, let me assure you, you understand nothing of it. For of yourself, you could not understand it. The study of the ego is not the study of the mind. In fact, the ego enjoys studying itself and thoroughly approves the undertakings of students who would analyze it, and thus approving its importance. Yet they but study form with meaningless content, for their teacher is senseless, though careful to conceal this fact behind impressive-sounding words, but which lack any consistent sense when they are put together. All right, that's Jesus trashing all the ologies that are out there, the psychology, the theology, the philosophy, all those things. He says the ego loves to study itself because the focus is on it. You're making it very important, making it very real, as we would say. So the ego just loves to engage in that. Okay? And he says the ego loves it, it approves of it when you analyze it. Right? Now, no one is suggesting that you don't go into therapy, all right? You don't go study things that you like, all right? If you like archaeology, geology, all right? If you like, go, because you can find God anywhere. So go. As Joseph Campbell would suggest, follow your bliss. Do what makes you happy in this experience, okay? Just at some point you come to the realization, you do it with a little smile on your face. Okay? Knowing that there is something else, there's something other than the form that I'm studying here. Okay? And in this paragraph is, to me, a very powerful sentence. I always remember it. At times during my life here, where he says that the ego is incapable of understanding content and is totally unconcerned with it, doesn't care about content. And here's the sentence. To the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. All right? And that's the world of advertising, right? The world of salesmanship, right? And all those, those ideas of Marshall McLuhan when he said that the media is the message, or the message is the media, right? The media is the message. All those subliminal things they would hide in the. If the form, as a human being, you see another human being, two human beings in front of you. One human being's form is pleasing. The other human being's form is not. we are most likely to believe the human being whose form is pleasing. Okay? Right? To the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. So whatever message they're giving us must be true. Right? That's why you see, politicians with all their flags around them and, giving you the message of this, that, and the other thing. They go and do something completely different. Right? Because they got half the people faked out. Right? More than half. Well, half. Okay. Let's give us a break here. Because the picture is pleasing. The picture is acceptable. Okay? Those photo ops, and even sound bites now. Okay? They become, in the past decades, they've become more and more powerful. Because people's attention spans are shorter. Okay? Everybody's attention span has gotten shorter. So the idea of the photo op, the sound bite is very powerful. Because to the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. Okay. So, in fact, the ego enjoys studying itself. Okay? Yet they but study form with meaningless content. Right? If we're studying the ego, it's just form, meaningless content. Because the teacher is senseless, the ego is senseless. Right? Though careful to conceal this fact behind impressive sounding words. Right? Which lack any consistent sense when they are put together. Not to beleaguer the fact, but Dr. Wapnick once said that as he was studying for his degree in psychology, it dawned on him that this wasn't it. Right? There was something beyond this. Okay? And but nonetheless, he got his doctorate in psychology, and was beyond a doubt, a very helpful, very good clinical psychologist. A very dedicated man, dedicated to truth. Okay? But he realized there was something outside of this study. That's all. Okay. Let me bring myself back here. All right. Paragraph 9. This is characteristic of the ego's judgments. Separately, they seem to hold, but put them together, and the system of thought that arises from joining them is incoherent and utterly chaotic. For form is not enough for meaning, and the underlying lack of content makes a cohesive system impossible. Separation, therefore, remains the ego's chosen condition. For no one alone can judge the ego truly. Yet when two or more join together in searching for truth, the ego can no longer defend its lack of content. The fact of union tells them it is not true. So the ego is all about separation. And Jesus says, so if two join together, right, and look at the ego will dissolve. The fact of their union tells them it's not true. Just the very fact that I join with the idea of Jesus, And if I am willing to see your innocence, I'm joining with you. I'm joining with your mind. Right? Then the fact of that union proves that the ego is not true, because the ego's foundation is separation, right? Separate minds, right? A mind that's separate from the mind of God. My mind is separate from yours. My truth is different than yours. Right? The first law of chaos that we'll get to later on. And the ego is chaos. And its first law is that the truth is different for everybody. Okay? And yet, we come to realize that the truth is one, as they say. The truth is one. And it's that fact that no one alone can judge the ego truly. You can't do it by yourself. Okay? We need the Holy Spirit. We need Jesus. We need the symbol of love somewhere outside the system. Okay? We're not saying that unless you're doing things according to the Course of Miracles, you're, condemned to being a chaotic ego the rest of your life. That's not it. The idea is to connect with something outside the system, right? You know that there's something other than this. You connect with that, right? And together, the ego dissolves. Okay? So, paragraph 10. It is impossible to remember God in secret and alone. For remembering him means you're not alone and are willing to remember it. Take no thought for yourself, for no thought you hold is for yourself. If you would remember your Father, let the Holy Spirit order your thoughts and give only the answer with which he answers you. Everyone seeks for love, as you do, but knows it not unless he joins with you in seeking it. If you undertake the search together, you bring with you a light so powerful that what you see is given meaning. The lonely journey fails because it has excluded what it would find. Right? The lonely journey. The individual, looking for something, whatever he thinks or she thinks is going to bring them peace, bring them happiness, right? Whatever it is they're looking for. Okay. The lonely journey fails because it has excluded what it would find. And what it would really find, what it's really looking for, is the fact that there is no separation. Right? There is no individuality. That's what the lonely journey is really looking for. Okay? And no one alone can judge the ego truly. Right? And it's impossible to remember God in secret and alone. Right? And it's not that we have to invite somebody over to talk about it. We go to the Holy Spirit. Right? We go to Jesus, the symbols that we use in the Course. Okay? And then we're not alone. Let's see. So he says, if you would remember your Father, let the Holy Spirit order your thoughts and give only the answer with which he answers you, which is love. All right? So he's repeating what he said earlier in the section. Let the Holy Spirit order your thoughts. And he will answer everything the way he answers you. He will answer everything with love. which will take the necessary form. Okay. Paragraph E11. As God communicates through the Holy Spirit in you, so does the Holy Spirit translate his communications through you, so you can understand them. God has no secret communications, for everything of him is perfectly open and freely accessible to all, being for all. Nothing lives in secret, and what you would hide from the Holy Spirit is nothing. Every interpretation you would lay upon a brother is senseless. Let the Holy Spirit show him to you and teach you both his love and his call for love. Neither his mind nor yours holds more than these two orders of thought. Okay? So the Holy Spirit as mediator, as communicator, as translator. God communicates to the Holy Spirit the memory of who you are. And the Holy Spirit translates those communications into a language we can understand in this condition. He translates his communications through you so you can understand them. That's one of the beautiful concepts in the Course, that when we want to connect with the Holy Spirit, with God, with Jesus, right? The messages come to us in a language we can understand, right? Which means it'll fit the form of your life. Right? And you will eventually become aware of it, how it's working in your life. Okay? It will become more and more obvious to you. Okay? And remember, he says here that, so let the Holy Spirit interpret everything, because every interpretation you would lay upon a brother is senseless. Right? No matter how many ologies you are familiar with. All right? The interpretation of your brother would be senseless. All right? Let the Holy Spirit show that person to you. Okay? And let the Holy Spirit teach you both his love and his call for love. Right? Personally, I've come to believe that that's what relationships are good for, really. I mean, it's the perfect good, right? Not that they're not good for other things, but the ultimate is that we connect with the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit shows us both the love and the call for love of the other. Right? And if we are willing to accept that and act accordingly, right, our lives become a little easier day by day. Right? We become happier. We become happy learners. Right? So the Holy Spirit will show you his love or his call for love. It says, neither his mind nor yours holds more than these two orders of thought. The miracle is, paragraph 12, the miracle is the recognition that this is true. Where there is love, your brother must give it to you because of what it is. But where there is a call for love, you must give it because of what you are. Earlier, I said this course will teach you how to remember what you are. restoring to you your identity. We have already learned that this identity is shared. The miracle becomes the means of sharing it. By supplying your identity wherever it is not recognized, you will recognize it. And God himself, who wills to be with his Son forever, will bless each recognition of his Son with all the love he holds for him. Nor will the power of all his love be absent from any miracle you offer to his Son. How then can there be any order of difficulty among them? Right. So by supplying your identity wherever it is not recognized, you will recognize it. By connecting with the Holy Spirit, right, our identity is restored. You are the child of God. Right? You are that. Right? And the miracle becomes the means of sharing it. Right? We become willing to share all of what we are in truth. All of what we are, we're willing to share it because that's its nature anyway. Right? By supplying your identity wherever it is not recognized, you will recognize it. Same, that's that idea of giving and receiving once again. Right? You offer innocence to the other, you become aware of your innocence. And God himself, who wills to be with his Son forever, will bless each recognition of his Son with all the love he holds for him. Right, so all the love God holds for the other and for you will come forth. Right? There's no order of difficulty. There's no dosages. Right? There's no recipe. There's only the maximal dose of love. Right? Nor will the power of all his love be absent from any miracle you offer to his Son. All right? So the power of all the love of God will be in every request. Help me to see this correctly. All right? All the power of God will be in that. So how can there be an order of difficulty among them, he says? Right? How can one thing be more important than the other? It's either love or a call for love. And that is the equality of miracles. Okay. And with that, we will bring this session to a close. Thank you for being here. I always love the opportunity of talking to myself, as I say. Not sarcastically now. We are all one, correct? All right. I'll leave you with that silly cone. All righty then. Bye.